Chapter 38. Just to recap where we are, chapter 35, 36, 37 was the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe, was explaining us how action is so important, how the whole purpose of this world, the whole reason, even if we can struggle with our emotion and struggle to feel connected and struggle to feel motivated, the comfort is that in the end, our action is the most important. That Hashem comes into this world, His light is brought down into this world every time we do a physical action. And this explanation could also be applicable in everything in life. That in the end, our action is what counts. You can be the most philosophical person and the most deep person and the most loving person to your spouse, but if you don't, or to anyone, or to your kids, or to any relationship, but if you don't do action for that person, then it doesn't count. So now that we understand the importance of action, chapter 38, the Alter Rebbe is also going to explain us the importance of kavana, which is intention, which is having what's another word for kavana? Yeah, I guess intention. Having emotion and passion while you do the thing. So as much as we understand that action is important and that a person who prays, who says prayers, okay, prayer is a form of connecting to God. So it's communication. It's when you use your words, your mouth. All you need to do is move your lips. And if you're saying the words, then your prayer is okay, even if you didn't have any good passion or intention or kavana while you were praying. You don't have to start again. Kavana is very important, and we're going to read inside. I'm going to read inside the Tanya in his words, and then I'm going to explain it, okay?
Yeah.
So im kol haniskar le'il yuvan hetef psak halacha harucha betalmud upaskim dehirhur lav kedibur demei. In light of all that has been said above, one will clearly understand the halachic decision expressly stated in the Talmud and the codes that meditation is not valid in lieu of verbal articulation. So you can't meditate instead of talking. Okay, you can't say I'm gonna do my prayer and meditate the whole time. Okay, that cannot replace. Halacha is very practical. Very, very practical. A person has to start praying again if he only meditated. He thought about all the words. He knows it by heart. In his mind, he said it. It's not counted halachically as a prayer. Ve'im kara kriya shema b'machshavta b'liba levad b'chol koach kavanasa lo yetze yedei chavasa v'tzarech lachzor v'likrais. Thus, if one recited the Shema in his thought and heart alone, even if he did so with full power of his concentration, he has not fulfilled his obligation. He must repeat it verbally, okay? So we understand the importance of action, of actually using your words and saying, okay? You can think about someone, you can have the right intention and passion for that person, but if you don't say it, you don't connect to that person. So too for prayer. You can have the biggest thoughts and deepest thoughts about God and the words of prayer, but if you didn't say it, halachically your prayer is not worth anything. And also for blessing after you finish eating, and all of the prayers and blessings. But on the other hand, if one spoke the words, okay, any of these prayers, but he did not concentrate his thoughts, he does not need to repeat it. So we see how
action is more important.
Action can live without intention, but intention cannot live without action. Levad mi pasuk rishon shel kriya shema ubracha rishona shel tefillah shemona esrei. Only there's one pasuk in Shema that you have to repeat if you don't say with the proper intention, and the tefillah of Shemona Esrei, the Amida, where you're standing and saying to yourself, that you have to repeat if you didn't say with the proper intention. It is thus written, until here, The mitzvah is one of concentration. From here on, the mitzvah consists of recitation. Okay, so it's just to prove that certain parts of the prayer, you have to have kavana, which is only the first part of the Shema and the Shmona Esrei. Why is it that action is so important? Who can tell me why is action so important? Because we live in a physical world, and it's not our soul that needs healing. It's this physical, it's our body, it's our physical body, it's this physical body that needs healing. So action is what will bring it healing. Our soul does not need healing. The thing that's most connected to our soul is our thought. Our thought is our soul. Our soul is the most connected to our thought. It does not need healing. So kavana is not as important as action in this world. This is because the divine soul does not need to perfect itself through mitzvot. The mitzvot are not for the divine soul. It's for your body. It's for your lips to move, for your tongue, for your teeth, for your throat, for your breath. Those need elevation. Your body needs elevation, not your soul. Rather, the goal of mitzvot is to draw down godly light to perfect the vital soul and the body. This is accomplished by means of the letters of speech, which the soul utters by means of the 5 organs of verbal articulation, and through the mitzvot of action, which the soul performs by means of the body, other organs. Okay, just to explain what we learned in the previous chapter, that it's our soul, all the organs, everything we use is elevated every time we do a mitzvah. Our physical body, the physical world is elevated every time we do a mitzvah, because our soul does not need healing. Our soul is perfect. It's only here to help us, and it's not here. It does not need, when you just think and have the intention, you're not doing anything. You're not changing something in this world. Hi, Marie. We waited for you. We just introduced. Okay. So who again can tell me, Dorit, can you tell me for Marie, why is action more important?
Hi, Marie. Your soul is perfect because it's godly, but your body needs to be elevated. So your throat, your respiration.
So by you coming, driving, digging out the snow, you just elevated the car, the snow, your hands, your feet, your everything, just to come to this this class.
So I can.
So you can sit down again, exactly. Okay. So now, now the Alter Rebbe is going to bring a phrase that is written somewhere, and he's going to say, and this phrase is going to put a question to everything we learned. Okay. So this is where it begins. This is where you have to listen. Afal pikein amru. Okay? Yet, nevertheless, it has been said, Tefillah, or shar bracha belo kavana hein keguf belo neshama. It has been said that prayer or any other blessings said without kavana is like a body without a soul. So at the same time we know that action is the most important. Why? Because our body needs to be elevated. This world needs to be elevated. Our body are chariots for Shekhinah to come down, and it can only be done through physical action. At the same time, there's a pasuk that the Alter Rebbe brings over here that says that any prayer or any blessing, or in that case, any action without intention is like a body without a soul. The body being the mitzvah or the action or the prayer, and the soul being the kavana. If you don't put kavana, intention, passion in what you do, what you say, what you pray, there's no soul to the body. But the Alter Rebbe has a problem with this, because we were just saying how, according to halacha, action is still counted even without kavana. So how can you tell us How can you compare it to a corpse that's lifeless?
C'est pas faux.
How can you compare? But it's lifeless. Hashem will still accept a prayer without kavana. What, he's going to accept a corpse without a soul? A corpse that has no life? So over here, the Alter Rebbe is going to go deep. Okay, this is going to be a little bit deep. You guys have to hold on. I'm going to try to do it slowly. I even had a hard time understanding. And he's going to explain what is a body, what is a soul, how are they connected, and how are they different. We're going to go more into that. Perush. This comparison of the words of prayer to a body and of kavana to a soul means as follows. Ki kema shekol haberuim sheba'olam hazeh sheyesh lahem guf u'neshama. Just as all the creatures of this world possessing a body and a soul, shehem nefesh kol chai veruach basar ish v'nishmas kol asher ruach chaim ba'apiv mikol ba'alei chaim. Meaning, the nefesh of every living being. Okay, the nefesh is a soul. The ruach of all human flesh, it's another level of the soul. And the neshama of all that has breath of life in its nostrils among all living creatures. So basically he's saying that everything created in this world needs to have a soul, a body, and a soul. Everything. Okay? Nothing could exist without God's breath or God's light, okay? Starting from the rock that's inanimate to the plant that is a different level. It's called someach, okay? So it's a little bit more animated than a rock. To the animal that's even more animated than the plant and the rock. To the midaber, to the human, to the one who speaks. That's even more. What? Everything. Every inanimate object, everything has a soul in it and a body. Okay, the body is what we see, the physical thing, but everything has to have a soul in order for it to exist. Vashem mechayas kulam umehave otam me'en leyesh tamid be'ar v'chayas shematzbiya behem. Oh boy, I was filming and it fell on the table. I'm so sorry. Okay, at least they're gonna hear. Yes. So God animates them all and creates them constantly out of nothingness by the light and vitality which he bestows upon them, upon both the soul and the body, and in support of his contention that the body too has a godly life force aside from the soul, the Alter Rebbe adds, Shigam haguf hachumri, ואפילו אבנים ואפר הדומן ממש יש בו אור וחייס ממנו יזבח שלא יחזור להיות אין ואפס כשהיה. For even the material body, and furthermore, even the very stones and earth which are absolutely inanimate, lacking even that sign of life found in a plant life, for example, growth, even the totality inanimate being has within it light and vitality from God, so that it should not revert to nothingness as it was before it was created. So everything has a spark of God inside of them.
Question?
Yes.
Ok, le rocher a une âme. Mais si on fait fondre le rocher, un objet...
Tu changes.
L'or, par exemple, une bague.
Oui,
It doesn't matter. Cette âme,
mélange avec d'autres choses, etc.
It's still there.
L'objet fini va avoir sa propre âme, mais alors que
Il y a l'âme et il y a
matière
l'objet
avait-
physique. So the physical material is changing shape, but the light force is still
Mais
inside
ce
of
que je veux
them.
dire, c'est on va prendre un exemple, l'armée israélienne. Merkava, le char, c'est fait avec du métal, avec de tissu, avec du caoutchouc.
So it has the
Ce
different
sont des
life
choses-
force of.
Oui, différents composants. Mais est-ce que chacun des composants du char a sa propre âme
Very good question.
dans le char, ou est-ce que c'est le char en entier, la fabrication humaine, un objet de fabrication humaine qui a son âme?
That's a very good question. So I can't really answer that because I don't know exactly. But if I understand from what originally all the materials were created from God, right?
Oui.
They all have that life source that was taken and manipulated and built, but it's still the life source. Every creation, okay, this is plastic. I don't know how many materials they use, but it has different life source. Every creation has different life source. So it has to be, I would think that it's not a new one. It's like we don't create, God creates. We just take and we manipulate and change. On peut pas donner. So I would say it's all the different sparks. Yeah.
Même les animaux pas cachers et tout, ils ont des souls.
Yeah, everything has, everything cannot, nothing can exist without God's light and spark. Okay. So this is, we have to understand this in order to understand his question of why is a action or a prayer without kavana, without intention, compared to a body and a soul. So now we're trying to understand what are souls and what are bodies. So we understand now he's bringing that everything in this world that exists has a body and a soul. Everything from the table to the chair to the bottle. Okay, it's made from different materials, but it's still those materials that came originally from their natural source. They were created from God and they have that source from God that put in. Okay? So everything has ve'af al pi kein ein erach v'dimyan klal ben bechinas or v'chayis ha'me'er beguf legabe bechinas or v'chayis ha'me'er b'neshama shehi nefesh kochai. Just as in, sorry, I just want to make sure that. Just as in all the creatures of this world possessing a body and a soul, there is nevertheless no comparison or similarity between the quality of the light and life force radiating in the body and the light and life force radiating in the neshama, which is the soul of every living thing. Okay? Just take that in.
Okay, that means the soul that's in there has nothing to do with our soul.
Not at all. No. For sure not. So that's where we're going to understand the difference of body and soul. So the physical of all creation, of inanimate objects, of plants, of animals, of human, and the spiritual, the source, what that gives them life source is completely different lights or energy. Okay? Ve'af shebenehem shebishnehem ar echad shave bechinas hester panim. True, in terms of the concealments of countenance, the light is the same in both body and soul. Okay, so it's going to get complicated, but I'm going to explain everything. The garments in which the light hides, conceals, and clothes itself are identical in both body and soul. Okay, I'm going to take a little break because I feel like I'm losing you. Okay, so there is the body, the physical things that we see, and then there's a soul. There's in everything. There's a soul or there's a spark. I wouldn't call it a soul. I would call it a spark. But everything has a spark. The spark in here and the actual physical have different energy, different life force. But they both conceal the existence of God. Wait, you're getting there. Everything in this world that we experience, that we see, that we touch, that we feel, went through a tzimtzum, a contraction and a concealment to exist for this world to exist. And the body and the soul went through the same. So they both experience a concealment. Okay, in Hebrew it's called a helem or a hester. So the body and the soul have a similar concealment when it comes to the world. Concealment is caché. And they both are hidden by the klipa noga. Okay? But when it comes to their life force, to what animates this, the light that is in this, and the light that it is in that plant, in those flowers, and the light that's in that cat that's walking by, or the light, the soul that's in us, human beings, it's very different. This is called tzimtzum. There's two kinds of lights being hidden in this world. There's a light called helem, and there's a light that is in this world in a tzimtzum way. What's the difference? The Alter Rebbe brings an example. You guys don't see it, but you see the curtain in the back?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a light outside the curtain. Through the curtain, you can see a light, but it's not the same light that if the window would exist, right? Now, certain parts of the curtain have little cracks. That light is smaller than if the window was uncovered, but it's the same light. It's not concealed with a curtain in front. It's the same light. It's just in a smaller quantity. Helem is as if you put a curtain, a filter in front. You put a filter, so the light that comes out is nothing compared to what the real light is. That's called helem. This is concealment. This is klipas noga. This is the physical world has a helem, has a klipa that covers the light of God that creates physical objects. That's how the physical world exists. That's how we feel. If we feel, that means that there's a klipa, and that means that God's light is different than what it originally is. Because if it wasn't, then we would not be able to feel. We would be completely annulled, or completely disappear into God's light. Okay? If we didn't have that concealment. So the light that we experience in this world, in every physical thing, which is in the body, and even the neshama, in a certain sense, because it's hidden, the fact that we live in this world and we have a neshama, and we still could have an ego and could imagine that God, could think that God not exists, that's because there is a helem, there's a concealment that differentiates the light of God in this world. It makes it different. It makes a separation.
So God's light is filtered
in this world for us
this world, and this is what we call helem.
This is helem, exactly. This is what makes it that we're able to see things that are separate from God. So this is how body and soul is kind of connected, because the body and soul exist in this world and separate and feels separate from God. Then there's a different light, and it's called tzimtzum. This light is like you put in front of a window a big piece of wood and you leave a little opening. So that light that comes through the opening is the same intensity like the real light. It's just in a smaller space. This tzimtzum is what differentiates the body and the soul. It's what differentiates an inanimate object to a plant, to a person, to an animal. And that's why the light that this receives is very little compared to the plant, because this one cannot grow. This thing can't do anything, but the plant has a little bit more light, which makes it grow and has more life. And the animal has a little bit more light, which makes it more advanced than plants. And of course the human has the most light, the most expansion of light, which makes us be able to talk. And that's how we're differentiated. And much more. No, so now compared to that, kavana and mitzvot is compared to body and soul in that sense. Mitzvah that's just done out of action without any intention is like a mitzvah that's inanimate. It can't do much. But if you add a little bit of more intention, it suddenly can become a plant, depending on the levels of intention. There's 4 levels. If you put even more love and passion to it, it comes onto an animal level. And if you really do it not out of instincts, but out of pure love and understanding and meditation of God and passion for God, then it becomes a mitzvah that has the highest form of intention, which is a mitzvah in the level of a human. Okay, so he brings this in order for us to understand that there are different levels in our actions. It can start from a lifeless body, from domain, and it can go to plants.
Mais c'est pas des actions, ça.
No, but it's bringing an example.
Yeah.
So, like you can understand that an inanimate object has life of God, but in a very small way, just to exist. and how a plant has a little bit more light and it could grow. And how an animal has a little bit more light, it can move and attack and have personality, and then the human has the highest light. We can understand that our action, which is body, right? Our actions, our body. When we put intention, it's like the life force, the vitality that Hashem puts in his creation. So we take the action, which is the body, and our actions gonna be like inanimate objects, like a corpse, or is it gonna be like a plant, like a little bit more lively? You put some intention in it, or is it gonna be like instinctively you want to do it? You have some kavana, but it's more instinctive, like animals are very instinctive. Or is it going to be really because you thought about it and meditated and connected and had this full passion, and it's going to be a mitzvah that's full of life, a mitzvah with a soul? Do you understand the comparison that he brings?
Oh, à peu près. Ça rejoint un peu certains enseignements qu'on entend comme il faut être dans le maintenant, pas dans le passé ni dans le futur.
Please explain. I don't.
Mais on en reçoit souvent des choses comme de dire il faut être dans le présent. C'est être dans le présent, c'est être en pleine conscience de ce qu'on fait.
So this is beautiful. So this is how we can take Tanya in a practical way. And Marie, this is what I was thinking. I love to bring it in a practical way. We can go more deep. It's very deep how he explains the light and what's hell and he even explains how the light descends into this world. But what we understand from this is that in our life we can be inanimate objects, the way we react. We can act like plants, we can act like animals, or we can act like humans. How? Are we conscious? Are we aware? Are we do we put intention into what we do? Or do we just do things just because we have to do the minimum? I have to do this, so I'm going to do the minimum. So everything in your life is going to be the minimum. It's just going to be like it's going to represent domem, which is the level of inanimate objects that live, that exist, but they can't really do anything. Or are your actions going to have a little bit more intention, but not enough to be? 1 minute, I'm going to mute you. Sorry, it was very noisy. So everything you do, this represents that the way we live. You can live with awareness, or you can live with, in a robotic way, or sometimes people can be very aware, can only live with the soul and not have the body. That's also an issue. Can be people who are always so, I know actually someone like that, who's always excited and motivated, but then she can't get any physical, like anything done. She's always like running around and can't get action done. So we see here the balance between action and intention. We understand the importance of action. And I heard a really good example. You go to a restaurant, you have a waiter who is so nice and he's joking and he makes you feel good and he takes your order and you're having such a good time. And then when the food comes, he messed up your whole order. You have another waiter who does not smile, il est pas sympathique, he's like cold, really not. He takes your order, he comes, you have a wonderful meal. Which waiter do you prefer?
Second one.
The one, even if he's not nice or he doesn't smile, he doesn't joke with you, you don't care. In the end, you got your meal. That's the most important. So you see how action is very important, much more important in this case than the person who was very nice and warm and made jokes, and because he didn't deliver it, in the end you came for your meal, right? Mm-hmm. But then you have the waiter who delivers beautifully and is warm and smiles, and then he deserves the big tip, right? So action in itself could work. It could work. Someone who does action usually is always a winner. Even if that person doesn't have a lot of passion in their life, doesn't have a lot of excitement, that person is always going to the world. We are a world of action. I don't care how passionate, how
It's
excited,
a
how
balance.
loving.
It's not only action. It should be.
So
a
that's
balance,
where the
because
Alter
you
Rebbe
just said
brings.
it's someone that
That's
only-
where, but you can see how still the waiter who was
Non, mais comme
action.
exemple, je
You
parle
don't like
en
the.
général, tu
Non,
peux pas
général.
être que dans l'action, c'est un équilibre entre
So for
vraiment
sure,
différents-
but that person is still gonna get through life. A person who doesn't do anything but is always so friendly and so warm and so loving, but doesn't perform, doesn't do anything for the people around them, doesn't act, doesn't do any action, that person is never gonna get anywhere. Do you understand how the
Ouais,
how
mais
the difference
là,
is?
on est vraiment
But-
sur le Kavana, là.
No, we are, but I just want you to understand why action came first and why the Alter Rebbe said action is the most important.
Oui, ça, on l'a compris.
So once we understood this,
Yeah.
once we understand that action is the most important and you could still live without action, now you have to understand why intention is also very important. That this is what brings life
But
to
what
the
is
actual
intention
body.
according to the Tanya?
Ah, that's a good question.
c'est
What
la
is
base.
intention according to the Tanya? Intention is the thought you put into it, the passion, the connection towards God. So over here, we're obviously talking just about mitzvot.
Is the what?
Mitzvot is to connect to God. Tefillah, prayer, it's knowing the words, understanding the words, having feelings for God, okay? Having a passion to want to connect to God. That is called intention. And the Alter Rebbe brings even more, someone who cannot feel for God, right? Like
Un athée?
no, not even like a benoni. A benoni cannot. Technically, according to most of us, we can't feel what a tzaddik feels.
No.
The feelings that a tzaddik, so we don't have those feelings and those intention that a tzaddik has. So what do? An intention could also be the trust. The fact that you trust that when you do this, you are connecting to God. That is intention. I'm praying to God. I feel nothing. I'm not motivated. But I trust that this is how I'm going to connect. This is also called an intention. It's a different level. It's a different level. And I have to look. Next week, I'm going to divide it. I'm going to write it in the paper which level is what, because it divides exactly very clearly what level is what. But it says that person, by doing the action with the intention of trusting and believing, could awaken that inner love. You remember we learned about the inner love we all have within us? That inner love that we inherited from Abraham Avinu. That inner love that is in our neshama that we cannot get rid of. It just goes from mothers to mothers, Jewish mothers. It's how do you call it? It's inheritance. It's that love we can access when we do an action with the thought, okay? Just with our thought, not with our emotions, because we can't connect, we can't create those emotions. We are not able to create emotions that don't exist, okay? We are not able to create emotions for God and that love of God. It's a very hard thing to do, and it's not only very hard, only tzaddikim could reach that level. But we can awaken that hidden love within us, and yes, that's why regular people that are benunim and not tzaddikim, can feel that love when they're able to connect and have that emunah. They're able to connect to that love that is hidden within us. So again, I want to review because this is big information.
Question.
Yes, go ahead.
Un peu macabre, mais vous allez voir qu'elle est macabre. Quand on meurt, notre corps, notre âme, on dit que notre âme quitte notre corps, mais d'après ce que je viens d'apprendre, on a une âme qui reste là quand même, parce que le corps, il est là, il existe.
That's a very good
On
point.
le met en terre, mais après...
Il se décompose.
Voilà.
So it does. That's the whole idea of
What happens?
when Mashiach comes. That's why the bodies are going to reconnect to. Do you know that there's one part of the body that will never decompose?
C'est là, le coup.
Yeah. So it's set osla
Un os
is
qui
going to, if it's able, now you can understand how there's going to be a day when the body can be resurrected because it's still there. That life force is still there. Very good question. C'est quoi macabre? I don't even know what that
Ça
means.
parle de la mort.
Oh, but you brought in a very good point that I just came to that by by you asking that question is that technically the life force that is given inside the body, in the physical body, doesn't leave and is always there. And that's why when you go to visit someone at their tombstone, why are they connected? Because they're still connected to their body, that part that still exists. And that's why sorry, I just came to that. When you visit someone, why do you have to go? If a person is everywhere, right? When he passes away, his soul, he loses the dimension of time and space, or he's not confined anymore to the dimension of time and space. But you understand what's the importance of going and visiting their tombstone is because they are connected to their body still. Yes, very good point.
Do you connect? No, if I go, si je vais pèleriner, par exemple, ma grand-mère ou quoi, I don't feel her body is still here.
You don't, but why are you going there?
Parce que c'est le lieu qu'on a décidé.
Because that's where she was buried.
Ouais.
Because her body, her physical body was there. Her bones or whatever is left is still there. So she is connected to that. Why don't you just pray wherever you want? Why do you have to go to her tombstone?
Ça peut être dans ton jardin, ça peut être les cendres, on les amène partout.
Bah, ça c'est
non, mais je veux dire,
contre la Torah justement parce que le corps il est.
Mais ce que je veux dire, ok, quand des fois, d'ailleurs c'est le cas, ils l'ont transféré en Israël, alors c'est plus le Maroc, c'est ça. Donc c'est pas le lieu,
it is her body.
C'est là où il y a son.
It's her body, where her body is. That's what I'm saying. That's what we're saying. So yes, a body and a neshama is very connected, and even if they separate, we still respect the place where the body is buried. Very good point. So back to body and soul. So we understand how body and soul are both have in common that they both experience the helem, the concealment of God's light in this world. They're hidden with the klipas noga, right? We understand that how everything in this world that exists went through there's 4 levels that it went through. It went through first hishtalshlus. Hishtalshlus is like steers, okay? It descended from level to level. That's the first level. Then it went through tzimtzumim, contraction. Then it says it went through powerful contraction. But still, after these 3 steps, it's still not a physical world. Only when it clothed itself into klipat noga, only when the concealment of the klipa came, that's when it became a physical world. So this world, everything, body and soul experience a concealment called helem or hester, where the light is covering it. It's a different light. It looks so different that we are able to think that this is separate from God, that we are separate from God, that our bodies are separate from God, even our neshama feels separate from God. Okay, it went through that concealment. Okay, and we understand how it went through those 4 steps in order for the world to create. Now that we have everything in this world, everything needs a life force. This life force is a life force that is the soul of every creation in this world, and the life force went through a tzimtzum. Okay, and the opposite of tzimtzum is hishpashtus. So the tzimtzum is what contracts it, what hides it. Hishpashtus is the expansion. How do you know that?
Tu nous l'avais déjà parlé.
Oh, so the expansion is different in every creation. Okay, can I have the plant? So every creation, we don't have an animal. That's the only thing we don't have. So this, do you guys have an animal? So the light over here, the expansion is very small to the point that it doesn't do anything. Okay, it doesn't talk, it doesn't do anything. The expansion here is a little bit bigger. It's life. You feel the life. You feel it grows, it's beautiful, it smells. So there's a bit more light in this. The animal has a bit more light. They actually separate plants, and in the Tanya, they put inanimate objects and plants together in one category, and animals and humans in a different category. Why? Because animals and humans can both recreate, right? We can recreate flowers. It's different, but I don't know how ils se reproduisent, mais pas comme les animaux et les humains. Like we like bring, I don't know how, but I know he put them in 2 different categories. So yes, we are like animals. What differentiates us from animal is midaber, is that we talk, and our head is above our
I would say we think.
We
because
talk.
Animals talk.
we take
sometimes.
the animals think. No, they don't talk.
They talk, but they don't.
It's
ils-
instinct.
ils
So
pensent
so
pas.
what's the difference between
Un
animals and
perroquet,
humans?
il parle, tu vois ce que je veux
Oui,
dire?
mais c'est pas
Il y a
vraiment
des
parle.
petits animaux qu'ils vont.
They don't really
C'est
talk.
l'imitation.
Non, mais ils n'ont pas la pensée. C'est la pensée qu'ils n'ont pas comparé à.
Over here, they use medaber. They use the speech differentiates us. The speech is what makes us get to where we want to get to. Animals don't ask to. I mean, they don't talk
No,
and
they
create.
don't talk. They don't think. They don't have intention.
So they have instincts. Animals are instinctive, and humans that act instinctively are just like animals. But if we realize that we can be a step higher than animals, that's where we use intention, and that's where we do our actions with a little bit more intention, and we're aware of what we do. We don't just do things out of because this is what we're used to. That's what differentiates. This is what the Tanya is teaching us. Are we acting impulsively and instinctively according to our animal instinct, or are we
Ils ont pas de
taking a
conscience,
break?
ces animaux. En tout cas, je pense pas.
But we all have an animal within us. You know that. We have all these 4 levels within us. We can be all these 4 things. All these elements exist within the human being.
Mm-hmm.
The Alter Rebbe brings it as an example to explain to us the different levels of kavana, of the body and soul, of a mitzvah, but we can act that same way. And what's the difference is the level of vitality that was put into the action. Was it a little bit that is inanimate? Was your action, you just did it because you had to do it? Was it, you did it, okay, a little bit of life force, a little bit more? Or was it really intentionally with passion and connection and to bring it to the highest level of action? And this lesson is a huge lesson. It's something I'm going to go more into, exactly understand the 4 levels of actions and the 4 levels of creation. And but I think it's a powerful lesson. Dana, you have a question?
I think that when you say that, the one mitzvah that comes to mind right away is when you prepare a challah. I think that's the one that comes to me right away, because it's okay, it's Thursday and you have to prepare for Shabbat, and you just you do
Cooking,
it. And then there's
sure.
the one where you're really putting a bit more attention into it, and then there's also the time where you're really taking your time and you're praying during it. So I don't know why. Oops, sorry. I think when you were talking, if I put in my own words or in my own connection to what you were saying, that was my mitzvah that I would relate to in those 3 stages.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That could be anything, really. When you give tzedakah, when you pray. Okay, he brings here a lot of prayer, because prayer without intention and connection is really a lifeless body. Challah is still you do the action. You have a challah. You can have a good challah if someone didn't put so much intention. I think so. Sometimes I do challah without a lot of intention and it's still good. But it's true. I get what you see. I think it's
love.
Yes, I think the food that was cooked and made with love is definitely on a different level than, it's a very good example. Thank you. And so that's how we can understand why a mitzvah or a prayer without kavana is like a lifeless body, and how through the different ways of putting intention, how you can give it life. That body, that mitzvah, you can give it life. This is the lesson for today. We are done. Thank you all for following, and we'll see you next week.